In 1957, the average factory worker brought home about £8 a week. Out of that came rent, coal, clothes for 4 growing children, and somehow 3 meals a day for 6 people. No credit cards, no Tesco club card points, no freezer full of ready meals. Yet families ate. They ate well, and they wasted almost nothing. Number 18 on this list was so effective that modern meal prep influencers have reinvented it without realizing a woman in Salford was doing it 60 years ago with a pencil stub and the back of an envelope. Number 7 saved families up to 30% on their weekly food bill using a trick supermarkets have spent decades trying to make you forget. Before we start, hit the subscribe button because what you are about to learn is a masterclass in feeding a family that no cookery show will ever teach you. Let us count down the 25 habits that kept 6 mouths fed on a factory wage. Number 25. The Monday menu. Before a single penny left the housekeeping purse, your mum sat down on Sunday evening and planned every meal for the week. Not vaguely, precisely. Monday, shepherd's pie from Sunday's leftover lamb. Tuesday, liver and onions. Wednesday, toad in the hole. Every day accounted for. She wrote it on a scrap of paper and pinned it to the kitchen cupboard. There was no wandering to the shops on a whim. No impulse buys. A factory wage left no room for indecision. The menu was law. That single habit, planning before spending, saved more money than any coupon book ever printed. Modern budgeting apps charge monthly subscriptions to do what your grandmother did with a pencil and a torn-off cereal box flap. Number 24. The housekeeping tin. When Dad handed over the wages on Friday evening, your mum divided the money into labeled tins or envelopes before anything else touched it. Rent, coal, food, insurance. The food tin got roughly a third of the total, about £2 10 shillings in the mid-1950s, and that was it. Once the tin was empty, there was no more until next Friday. No overdraft, no borrowing from the coal money. She knew to the penny what a pound of mince cost at the butcher, and exactly how many days that tin had to stretch. That physical separation of money into purpose made overspending almost impossible. Every financial advisor today preaches envelope budgeting as if it were a breakthrough. Your grandmother invented it out of necessity and never once called it a system. Number 23. 1 meat meal a day. Meat appeared once a day at most, and some days not at all. The roast was Sunday. Monday used the leftovers. By Wednesday, meat might be a handful of mince, stretched with breadcrumbs and onion across 6 plates. Thursday could be cheese on toast or egg and chips. Friday was fish, if you could afford it. Nobody called this meal planning or flexitarian eating. It was simply how you made 2 shillings worth of meat last a week. The expectation that every meal should contain a generous portion of protein is entirely modern. In 1955, the average family consumed about 4 ounces of meat per person per day. Today we eat nearly double that and spend 3 times as much doing it. Your grandmother did not need a nutritionist to tell her that eggs and pulses could carry a Tuesday. She already knew. The trick was not abundance, it was rotation. Number 22. Bread with everything. Bread was the great filler of the British working-class table. A £2 loaf cost 11 pence in the early 1950s, and a family of 6 might go through 4 loaves a week. Bread appeared at every meal. Thick slices to mop up gravy. Toast soldiers with a boiled egg. Bread and dripping for supper. Fried bread with breakfast. Sandwiches for Dad's snap tin. Bread stretched every dish further, soaked up every sauce and filled bellies when the main course ran thin. Your mom sliced it herself from an uncut loaf because pre-sliced cost more and went stale faster. The heel of the loaf was never thrown away. It became breadcrumbs for coating fish, stuffing for a chicken, or the base of a bread and butter pudding. Nothing illustrated the working-class relationship with food better than that loaf sitting on the breadboard, covered with a cloth, present at every single meal like a silent member of the family. Number 21. The bone stock pot. A chicken carcass, a ham bone, the knuckle end of a leg of lamb. Nothing with marrow or cartilage ever saw the dustbin. Your mum would drop the bones into a heavy pot with an onion and a carrot, cover it with water, and let it simmer on the back of the range for hours. One set of bones produced enough stock for 2 days of meals. Monday's bone broth became Tuesday's vegetable soup with barley. Wednesday's ham bone stock became pea and ham soup thick enough to stand a spoon in. Bones were free. The butcher gave them away if you asked nicely, and bought your mince from him. That single pot of stock turned water and a few root vegetables into something nourishing and warm. Today, we buy cartons of bone broth for £3 a litre, paying for what our grandmothers extracted for nothing. Your mum did not do one big weekly shop. She could not afford to. Instead, she visited the butcher for meat, because his mince was cheaper and fresher. The greengrocer for vegetables, because his potatoes came loose and cost less per pound than pre-bagged. The baker for yesterday's bread at half price. The co-op for tins, flour, and sugar because of the dividend stamp. Each shop got the business it deserved based on price, not convenience. She knew every stallholder at the market by name. This was not shopping. It was strategy. Walking half a mile between 3 shops saved enough each week to buy an extra pint of milk. Supermarkets killed this habit by offering everything under one roof, but they also killed the competition that kept prices honest. Multiple specialist shops meant better prices, and that added up to real savings. Number 19. The Sunday roast stretch. The Sunday roast was not one meal. It was 3, sometimes 4. A joint of beef or a shoulder of lamb cost about 4 shillings in the mid-1950s, and your mother made it work harder than any cut of meat has worked since. Sunday was the roast dinner with vegetables and Yorkshire pudding. Monday was cold meat with bubble and squeak, or sandwiches for father's snap tin. Tuesday, the last scraps went into a shepherd's pie or a hash with fried potatoes. Wednesday, the bones made stock for soup. 1 joint of meat, 4 meals, 6 people fed each time. That was not thrift for the sake of it. That was survival mathematics. The joint was carved thin and precise, every slice accounted for. Children did not get to pick at the meat between meals. It sat covered on a plate in the larder, rationed out by the one person who understood exactly how far it needed to go, your mother. The co-op dividend book was not a loyalty card. It was a savings account disguised as a shopping trip. Every purchase at the cooperative store earned a dividend, a percentage of the spend returned to the family twice a year. By the mid-1950s, some families received as much as £2 back at dividend time, enough to buy shoes for the children or a new set of sheets. Your mum kept her dividend number memorized and recited it at the counter like a password. She chose the co-op not because the prices were always the best, but because the divvy turned everyday spending into enforced savings. Some women used the payout for Christmas. Others put it toward holiday club money. The genius was that it took willpower out of saving entirely. You spent what you needed to spend, and the co-op saved for you. Modern cashback cards try to replicate this, but the dividend was community-owned wealth redistribution, not a marketing ploy. When supermarkets arrived, the divvy could not compete with loss leaders and buy one get one free offers. We traded a genuine savings mechanism for the illusion of bargains. Number 17. Meatless fillers. Cheese and potato pie. macaroni cheese, egg and chips, Welsh rarebit, cauliflower cheese. These were not side dishes. They were the main event on days when the meat had run out and payday was still 2 days away. Your mom built entire meals around eggs and cheese and root vegetables because they were cheap, filling, and the children would eat them without complaint. A pound of cheddar cost about 1 6 in 1956, and it could anchor 3 dinners if grated thin and mixed with sauce. Eggs ran about 4 shillings a dozen. 2 eggs per person, fried or scrambled, with bread and butter, was a respectable tea that nobody needed to apologize for. These meatless days were not deprivation. They were the rhythm of the week, as natural as washing on Monday and baking on Friday. The modern notion that a meal without meat is somehow incomplete would have baffled your grandmother entirely. She fed 6 people on cauliflower cheese and they came back for seconds. Number 16. Seasonal eating by default. Nobody bought strawberries in January because there were none to buy. Your mom cooked what was available and what was cheap. That meant root vegetables from October to March, cabbage, swede, turnips and parsnips were the unglamorous workhorses of the winter kitchen. Spring brought rhubarb from the garden and the first new potatoes. Summer meant runner beans, tomatoes, and lettuce. Autumn was apples, plums, and blackberries picked free from hedgerows. She did not consult a seasonal eating guide. She looked at what the greengrocer had on his stall that morning and what price he was asking. When something was in glut, it was cheap. When it was out of season, it did not exist. This forced variety into the diet without effort. Meals changed with the calendar, because the calendar dictated what the land produced. We pay a premium now for what nature used to impose for free. Every square foot of soil was put to work. Potatoes, carrots, onions, runner beans, cabbages, and lettuce grew in rows behind terraced houses from Leeds to Luton. An allotment cost about 5 shillings a year to rent in the 1950s, and it could produce enough vegetables to cut the food bill by a quarter. Your grandfather spent his Saturday afternoons turning soil and earthing up potatoes while the children were sent to pick caterpillars off the cabbages. The allotment was not a hobby. It was an extension of the kitchen, a living larder that supplemented the housekeeping tin when money ran short. Number 14. Batch baking day. Friday was baking day in houses across Britain. Your mum would clear the kitchen table, tie on her apron, and spend the morning producing enough bread, cakes, and pastry to last the week. A Victoria sponge for Sunday tea, a fruit cake that improved with keeping, scones for the children's packed lunch, a meat and potato pie for Saturday dinner. Baking from scratch cost a fraction of buying from the baker. A sponge cake required flour, sugar, eggs, and margarine, ingredients that came to maybe 9 pence altogether. The same cake from the baker's window cost 2 shillings. Multiply that savings across every baked item for the week, and the numbers were significant. The oven was already hot from the bread, so everything went in one after another, using the falling heat for different items. Hot oven for bread, medium for cakes, cooling oven for meringues. That understanding of heat management saved fuel as well as money. One firing of the oven did the work of 5. Number 13. Hand-me-down recipes. Nobody bought cookery books. Recipes traveled by word of mouth, scribbled on the backs of envelopes, or written in pencil inside the cover of a school exercise book. Your mum's scone recipe came from her mother, who got it from her mother, adjusted along the way for whatever fat was available and however the oven ran. These recipes were not measured in grams and milliliters. They were measured in cups, handfuls, and a bit more flour if it looks wet. The instructions assumed competence. Mix until it feels right. Cook until it smells done. There was no photograph of the finished dish because nobody owned a camera for food. What these recipes lacked in precision, they made up for in reliability. They had been tested across decades and adjusted for real kitchens with real ovens that ran hot on the left side and cold by the door. Every recipe was already optimized for economy because it was born in economy. Second pattern, break. The rag and bone man's visit was not just about old clothes and scrap metal. Smart housewives traded household waste for donkey stones, pegs, or a few coppers that went straight into the housekeeping. But the real exchange happened at the kitchen door. Bones, fat, and dripping that could not be reused were sold to the tallow man, who rendered them into soap and candles. Nothing left the house without earning its keep first. Vegetable peelings went to the compost heap or to a neighbor who kept chickens. Tea leaves were scattered on the carpet before sweeping to pick up dust. The concept of waste, as we understand it, barely existed. Everything circulated. Your grandmother ran a closed-loop economy from a terraced house kitchen 60 years before sustainability became a buzzword. She did not do it for the planet. She did it because throwing things away meant throwing money away. Number 11. Filling puddings. Pudding was not a luxury, it was a strategy. When the main course was thin, pudding did the heavy lifting. Spotted dick, jam roly-poly, rice pudding, bread and butter pudding. All cheap, all filling, all designed to send children away from the table, unable to eat another bite. A rice pudding cost pennies to make. Milk, sugar, a handful of rice, and an hour in the oven. It plugged the gap left by a small portion of meat and 2 vegetables. Suet puddings were even more effective. Dense, stodgy, and calorific, they turned a modest dinner into a feast. Your mum knew the calculation perfectly. If the stew only stretched to small portions, make a big pudding. If the roast was generous, serve tinned fruit and custard instead. The pudding course was the pressure valve of the family budget, expanding and contracting to match whatever the main course could not provide. We dropped pudding from the daily menu when calories became the enemy. But when calories were the whole point, pudding was king. Number 10. Buying in bulk at the market. Saturday afternoon at the market was when the real savings happened. As stallholders prepared to close for the weekend, prices dropped. Fruit and vegetables that would not last until Monday were sold off cheap. Your mom timed her visit for the last hour, picking up bruised apples for a pie, soft tomatoes for a sauce, and wilting greens that would cook down perfectly in a soup. She knew that a pound of carrots at 4 o'clock cost half what it did at 10 in the morning. This required nerve. Wait too long and someone else grabbed the bargains. Arrive too early and you paid full price. The Saturday market run was a skill, refined over years, and the women who did it well fed their families better than those who paid full price on a Tuesday. Supermarkets eliminated this game entirely. Fixed prices, 7 days a week, no negotiation, no last-hour reductions worth waiting for. Number 9. Making clothes last to free up food money. This seems unrelated to feeding a family, but it was inseparable. Each penny saved on shoes, coats, and school uniforms went into the food tin. Your mom darned socks. She turned shirt collars when they frayed. She let down hems on school trousers as children grew. She knitted jumpers from unraveled wool. A family that spent less on clothing spent more on food. The two budgets were locked together. When shoes needed resoling, something came off the menu that week. The housekeeping tin did not care which category saved the money. Every penny was interchangeable, and your mom knew exactly which battles to fight to keep plates full. Number 8. Offal days. Liver, kidneys, hearts, and tripe cost a fraction of the price of proper cuts. In 1955, lamb's liver ran about 9 pence a pound, compared to 1 and 8 for a shoulder chop. Your mum bought offal every week because the arithmetic demanded it. Tuesday might be liver and onions. Thursday could be stuffed hearts braised in gravy. The children complained. The children always complained. But offal delivered more iron and vitamins per penny than any other protein on the butcher's counter. She fried liver fast in a scorching pan so it stayed pink and tender inside, smothered it in caramelized onions, and served it with mashed potatoes and a lake of gravy. Prepared properly, offal was not a punishment. It was a meal that tasted rich and cost half the price of anything else. We abandoned offal when prosperity made it unnecessary, and in doing so, we lost one of the most nutritious and affordable foods the butcher ever sold. Third pattern break. The pressure cooker changed everything for families watching every shilling. A tough brisket that needed 4 hours of slow roasting could be rendered fall-apart tender in 45 minutes under pressure. That meant less gas burned, less time waiting, and cheap cuts that ate like expensive ones. Your mom would brown the meat, add onions and a splash of stock, lock the lid, and let the steam do its work. The pot hissed and rocked on the hob like something alive. Children kept their distance, but a 2-shilling piece of brisket tasted like a 3 and 6pence joint after 45 minutes under pressure. The Prestige pressure cooker cost about £3 and lasted a generation. It paid for itself in fuel savings alone within 6 months. When slow cookers arrived in the 1970s, they offered convenience but doubled the cooking time and the gas bill. When runner beans came in a glut, you did not eat them for a week and throw the rest away. Your mum salted them. Layers of sliced beans packed with coarse salt in a large Kilner jar, pressed down tight and stored in the larder for winter. Pickled onions went into jars in September to be ready for Christmas. Chutney was made from green tomatoes that would not ripen before the frost. Jam from every soft fruit the garden or hedgerow produced. Blackberry and apple was the classic, cooked in a heavy pan with sugar until it set, poured into jars sealed with waxed paper circles. A morning's picking and an afternoon's cooking produced enough jam to last until spring. The preserving pan was not a quaint hobby tool. It was infrastructure. It extended the growing season into the lean months and replaced shop-bought preserves that cost 3 times as much. Number 5. Sharing and swapping with neighbors. When your allotment produced more courgettes than one family could eat, you swapped them with the woman next door, who had a surplus of eggs from her chickens. The street operated as an informal economy. One family's apple tree supplied half the road with fruit for crumbles in exchange for jars of pickled beetroot or a few hours of babysitting. This was not charity. It was mutual insurance. Your mum might send a child round with a plate of scones and receive a bowl of stew in return the following week. These exchanges never involved money and were never formally recorded. They existed on trust, built across years of living side by side. Supermarkets offered everything under one roof and eliminated the need for neighbors. We gained convenience and we lost community. Number 4. No snacking. There were 3 meals a day and nothing in between. Breakfast, dinner, and tea. If you were hungry between meals, you waited. The biscuit tin existed, but it was rationed. 1 biscuit after school if your mum was feeling generous. That was it. There were no multi-packs of crisps in the cupboard, no yogurt tubes in the fridge, no cereal bars in school bags. The absence of snacking was not cruelty. It was economics. Every biscuit eaten between meals was a biscuit that could not appear at tea time. Every apple consumed at 3 o'clock was 1 fewer for the fruit crumble on Sunday. Hunger between meals was managed with a glass of water or a thick slice of bread and marge. Appetite was preserved for the main meal, where calories were most efficiently delivered. We spend an estimated 15% of our food budget on snacks today. Your grandmother spent 0, and her children were not overweight. Waste nothing. This was not a habit. It was a religion. Stale bread became bread pudding or breadcrumbs. Leftover mashed potato was fried into cakes. The fat from frying was strained and reused. Vegetable peelings made stock. Bacon rinds were crisped and crumbled over soup. Apple peel went into the compost. Eggshells were crushed and dug into the garden. The outer leaves of a cabbage that we throw away today were chopped fine and added to soup. Nothing left the kitchen without yielding every last calorie it contained. Modern households throw away roughly a third of the food they buy. Your grandmother threw away almost none. If a family of 6 spent £2 10 shillings on food each week and wasted nothing, they ate as well as a family spending £3 15 who threw a third away. Waste was not just immoral, it was a luxury she could not afford. Number 2. The allotment as a second income. Beyond the vegetables it produced, the allotment generated actual revenue for some families. Surplus produce sold at the garden gate or at the local market brought in a few extra shillings each week during the growing season. A dozen eggs from backyard hens, a punnet of strawberries. These small transactions added up across a summer. Some families earned enough from their allotment to cover the entire fruit and vegetable portion of the weekly food budget. From May to October. The allotment was not leisure. It was a second job that paid in potatoes and pride. The families who worked their plots hardest ate the best on the street, not because they earned more at the factory, but because they produced more at home. Number 1. Cooking from scratch, every single day. Above every other habit on this list, this one made the difference. Your mom cooked every meal from raw ingredients, every single day. There were no ready meals, no jars of sauce, no frozen pizzas. She peeled potatoes, chopped onions, rolled pastry, and stirred gravy, because there was no alternative, and because cooking from scratch was the cheapest way to feed 6 people. A shepherd's pie made from leftover roast, fresh potatoes, and an onion cost about 1 shilling. The equivalent ready meal today costs £3 and feeds 2. The arithmetic has not changed. Cooking from raw ingredients remains dramatically cheaper than buying prepared food. What changed is that we decided our time was worth more than the saving. Your grandmother did not have that luxury. Her time went into the kitchen because the kitchen was where the money was saved. Every meal she cooked from scratch was an act of financial discipline as much as it was an act of love. She needed a sharp knife, a heavy pan, and the knowledge passed down from her own mother. That knowledge, more than any single trick or habit on this list, was what fed a family of 6 on a factory wage. Here is the truth that runs through every entry on this list. These were not quaint old habits preserved in sepia-toned nostalgia. They were a system, each habit interlocked with the others. The menu plan determined the shopping list. The shopping list determined which shops to visit. The leftovers from one meal fed the next. The savings from darning socks freed up money for an extra pint of milk. Remove one habit and the system still worked. Remove 5 and the budget cracked. Remove all of them, as we have done, and we spend twice as much to eat half as well. Try one this week. Plan your meals before you shop. Save the bones for stock. Make a pudding when the main course is small. Then come back and tell me your grandmother was wrong. I will be waiting.